I had swept the floor of the East Annex 3 mornings a week for 11 years, and in all that time I had never once seen what was behind the chain door at the far end of it. The staff called it the old conservatory, from back when the building had been a governor's house before the Corvette took it for their own embassy. Glass roof gone milky with grime, dead ferns in stone troughs, a smell of cold iron that never quite cleared. Nobody asked about it. You work in a place long enough, you learn which doors are not yours to open. I found out why on a Tuesday in late autumn, because the chain had rusted through and the door stood an inch ajar, and the smell coming out from under it was wrong. Not rot. Something closer to a hospital ward gone too long without fresh air, old blood, sickness, and underneath it, faint and strange, a smell like a thunderstorm a long way off. I should have told someone. I told myself that afterward more than once. Instead, I pushed the door open with my mop handle, the hinges groaning like they hadn't turned in years, and looked in. The light through the grimy glass overhead came down in dull gray bars, and at first I thought the shape in the corner was a fallen statue, some old governor's house ornament nobody had bothered hauling out. Then it breathed, and there she was. She filled half the room, ash-gray scales gone dull and flacking along her flank, wings folded tight and torn at the leading edge, a long-healed scar running the length of one foreleg. Her belly was swollen low and heavy in a way that looked wrong on a creature that thin everywhere else. One amber eye opened when the light hit her face, and she made a sound I had never heard a dragon make before, not a growl, not a hiss, closer to a sigh. I had cleaned up after worse messes in my life than a frightened, dying animal, and I am ashamed to say my first thought was practical and not kind. Somebody had hidden her here to die quietly, away from whatever court business required a tidy embassy. My second thought was that nobody had brought her water in what looked like days. So I brought her water. That was all. I didn't call anyone because by the time I had worked out who I would even call, I had already decided I wasn't going to. Her name, when she finally gave it to me in a low, rasping common she'd clearly had to relearn for our benefit, was Iasa. She didn't tell me anything else that first week, and I didn't ask. I came in the mornings before my regular rounds and the evenings after them, and I brought water, and broth when I could manage it without the kitchen staff noticing the missing portions, and I sat with her because she seemed to want the company more than the broth. She was carrying. That much was plain enough even to someone who had never tended anything bigger than a sick dog. The how and why of a Corvette elder hiding a pregnancy in a derelict conservatory was not my business, and for 3 weeks I kept telling myself that. The weight of it got harder to bear as the weeks went on for her, I mean. She slept less. The cough she'd had when I found her turned into something worse, something that left flecks of dark blood on the stone floor that I scrubbed clean every morning before the day staff came through. I brought blankets from the laundry, 3 of them, until I ran out of excuses for where the embassy's bedding kept going. I brought a space heater from the supply closet and ran the cord under the door so the night manager wouldn't see the annex lit. I learned to read her breathing the way I'd once learned to read my husband's in his last year, which breath meant she was only resting, and which one meant I should sit closer. "You should not be here," she told me once when the fever had her shaking. "If they find you have been kind to me, they will think less of you for wasting it." "Wasting what?" I said. "Kindness on something already spent." I told her I had buried a husband and raised 2 children mostly alone, and I had never once thought of kindness as something you could waste, only as something you could fail to spend. She didn't answer that. She just watched me with that one good eye for a long time, the way you watch someone when you're deciding whether to trust them with the rest of it. She never did tell me the rest of it. I learned later that she hadn't needed to. The embassy guard had been quietly turning the city over for 2 months looking for her, and I had been 3 corridors away from the search the entire time, mopping a floor nobody thought to check, because nobody believed a queen would crawl into a derelict greenhouse to die where her own court could not watch her fail. I did not know any of that yet, the night she went into labor. It went on for the better part of 6 hours. I am not a midwife, and I will not pretend I did anything more than what anyone would have. I kept her warm. I kept talking so she had something other than the pain to hold on to. And when the egg finally came, slick and warm and impossibly heavy for something the size of a Sunday roast, I held it against what was left of her strength so she could feel it was real. She lived. I want to say that plainly, because in the few stories I had ever heard about her kind, the mother never does. She lived, though for an hour afterward I genuinely did not believe she would. I sat on that cold floor with my hand on her flank, feeling every breath like it might be the one that did not come back, and telling her, stubborn as anything, that she was not allowed to quit now, not after 6 hours of proving she had no intention of quitting at all. By the time the search party found the broken chain on the door, the sun was coming up through the grimy glass overhead, and Isa was sleeping with one wing curled around an egg that had not yet cracked, and I was sitting against the wall beside her with a cup of cold broth I had forgotten to drink, too tired to be frightened of the 6 armored Corvath who came through that door expecting, I think, to find their queen's body. What they found was her breathing. What they found was me. The one in front, older, gray at the muzzle, the others deferring to him without a word, looked at her a long moment before he looked at me. I have thought since about what was in that look. Not gratitude exactly. Something closer to a man finding out, very suddenly, that the worst thing he had spent 2 months dreading had already happened, and had been survived without him. Sovereign Vanoth came himself 2 days later, once word had traveled however word travels in that court. He did not kneel and he did not make a speech, which I was grateful for, because I would not have known where to put myself. He sat on the floor of that ruined conservatory in his good robes, which I imagine cost more than I had earned in a decade, and he laid his hand flat against his wife's flank the way I had, and he did not say anything to me at all for a long time. When he finally spoke, it was not thanks. It was a question. He asked what she had said in all those weeks about why she had hidden herself away rather than let her own people watch her dying. I told him what she had told me about wasted kindness, and he was quiet so long I thought I had said something wrong. She has always believed dignity was a thing a person could run out of, he said finally. I never managed to convince her otherwise. It seems you did, simply by refusing to leave. I did not have an answer for that, and I still don't, not really. They offered me a great many things afterward, a position, a pension, a name I never asked for and have never used. I kept my job. I still sweep that floor 3 mornings a week, though the conservatory has glass in the roof now and real ferns and a small ash-gray dragon who is getting too big for the room and likes to sit by the door waiting for me to finish the East Annex first. Isa is there most mornings too, stronger every season, watching her hatchling chase dust motes through the new sunlight. She still calls it wasted sometimes when I bring broth I no longer need to bring. I tell her the same thing every time. You don't run out of a thing like that. You just keep finding more of it, in the same place you found it the first time, in a job nobody thought to check, on a Tuesday, with a mop still in your hand.